Hello and welcome to the Hurling Show here on Our Game. Myself, Shane Stapleton. I'm joined this time by Tomás McCarthy, Watford journalist. I'm sure plenty of you are well aware of him, and also the book he's after bringing out, which is Game of My Life, Watford, great hurling moments from over the years. I'd say you had great fun writing that one, did you, Tomás?
Oh, absolutely, Shane. Like, it's going from some of the heroes from 1959 right up to the present day, and it was just an absolute pleasure to be at the end of the phone line at times talking to these former greats. And I think there's a few stories in there that people maybe haven't heard before, so can't wait now to see it hitting the bookshelves now in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, have you any sort of snippets for us? I'd say plenty of people be looking to get that as a nice Christmas present.
Yeah, fingers crossed. A couple of players picking the 0-2 Munster final, and I think the stories from Brian Greene, people remember falling to his knees at the end of that Munster final, ending 39-year wait. Just how much it meant to him on a personal level and on a family level as well, because he described it as one of the holy grail in his family, winning that Munster title. And his father, Jim, tells a very, very honest and personal story as well. Fergal Hartley as well from 0-2, here's in the back of your neck stuff, Shane, talking about that lead up to that Munster final, and a nice story as well about a trip to Antrim as well, which people will enjoy too.
Yeah, of course, you'd have to bring up 2002 and try to sow the boot into me. We've got a bit of a 2002 vibe here, don't we? I'm wearing the Orga Retro jersey. Go to orgaretro.com, use the promo code OurGame, you get 15% off this beauty. I think a lot of Tipperary people love the old Finches jersey, so you can get that now. And you've obviously got, is the Gain Feeds jersey there that you bought
Gain
off
Feeds,
Orga Retro?
Gain Feeds, yeah.
I hope you used the promo code.
I did. During one of those lockdown purchases, yeah. But I think it brings it all back, doesn't it? It's kind of like 1998. I think that was the best hurling summer of all time, really, wasn't it?
1998, the long hot summer.
1998. Oh man, I was very lucky. That was my very first summer following Watford all over the country, and what a summer they gave us! But you had Babs, Sheep in a Heap, Colin Lynch affair, Clare and Offaly, the 3 matches, the early whistle, the protest, sit-down protest, Brian Whelan's flu game in the All-Ireland final against Kilkenny. It was memorable stuff. Netflix worthy, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, people, get your comments in and let us know of your favourite hurling summer or whatever it might be, or anything from the weekend. We're going to start off with the Watford action. It was fairly dramatic stuff in the Ballygunner against Mount Sion game. We'll come to that in a minute. Ballygunner are going for 8 in a row. But Roanmore seeing off Dungarvan, a first county title in 31 years. I'd say there was people crying, kissing babies, the whole lot after that game.
Amazing stuff, Shane. I was lucky enough. I was on commentary yesterday for BO Sport and WLR as well, and it was a classic pitch invasion at the end. Just sky blue shirts streaming onto the field, emotion, tears, the whole lot. 31 years, an awful long time. That was their first semi-final in 21 years as well. And they really seized the day. I mean, the Roanmore fans, they're right in front of where I was commentating. They absolutely raised the roof towards the end and at the full-time whistle. They're very vocal anyway, Shane, the Roanmore fans and the Roanmore subs as well, which is great to hear. And God, they really enjoyed that yesterday. I mean, you had a fellow like Michael Wadding, who was on the field yesterday. His son was playing Keane. He was part of the last Roanmore team to win county title in 1990, of course. The All-Ireland final referee from 2010, that Kilkenny Tipperary classic. And someone was saying to me out in the field, Jesus, it's just like old times, Michael, They won 2 titles, only 2 titles, 89 and 90. And now they're back in another one. Amazing day for Roanmore.
Yeah, how big an outsider were they, let's say, at the start of the season? Coming into the game, everyone was talking about the Currans and the performance they'd given the last day out against Abbeyside, if I remember correctly. So people were expecting them to come through. So how big of an outsider were they at the start of the season?
Well, I don't think anyone would have predicted that Roanmore would reach a county final, Shane, but this hasn't been an overnight success by any means. They have been building towards this for the past maybe 5 or 6 years, and fair play to Peter Queally. He mentioned the previous management team in his quotes afterwards, Lawrence Cha O'Neill as he's known, and Philip Murphy. They've made them really competitive over the past couple of years, Like before, Roanmore beat Lismore in that quarter-final. They lost 5 of the previous 6 quarter-finals. And they had pulled off a couple of scalps over the years. The likes of, they'd beaten Outside a couple of times at Welsh Park, had beaten 4 Mile Water, had beaten Lismore. So they had been there or thereabouts. But, Quealy and Roanmore are the perfect fit. Any Peter Quealy team that goes out, they're just so guts, determination, fire and brimstone stuff. Just like Peter Quealy was when he played with Watford back in 98, mentioned 98. And he mentioned afterwards, everything they have, they give. And that really sums up Roanmore, the spirit that they have. On Dungarvan's side, you mentioned the Currans there. They were a little bit unlucky. Gavin Crotty went off injured after 6 minutes, reoccurrence of a hamstring injury. He was in flying form in the previous 2 games, Shane. He got 4 points in the second half against Mount Sion. Was really lively against Abbey side as well. 2 points, won 2 penalties as well. Then Patrick Curran came off with 10 minutes to play. He was limping. They put him in full forward. He came off as well. So there were 2 big blows to Dungarvan. And Dungarvan, when they're on top, this was a very low scoring game. Like, as you know, Shane, conditions were miserable yesterday. It was like the start of winter hurling, like. So it was really low scoring. 98 scoring style, you could say.
Yeah.
Dungarvan went 11-9 up in that third quarter, and they had missed 3 or 4 glorious point chances just to put a bit of breathing space between the teams. And then Roanmore went up the other end, got a goal from Emmett O'Toole. And really, that was the turning point in the game. Roanmore never looked back from there, and that was the real game changer in the end, that goal from O'Toole.
I'm looking at the team here for Roanmore, and I have to say, I don't know that many of the players. I'm looking at Billy Nolan here. Yeah, I've heard of him. Gavin O'Brien, that's the Gavin O'Brien I presume that was on the county panel a couple of years ago. Yeah. So, and after that, I have to say, I don't really know too many of the other player names. So they're definitely not one of these star-studded teams.
Oh, definitely not. But we'll just touch on the 2 stars for a moment. Billy Nolan is sort of playing a sort of a sweeping role as centre back. Now, Roanmore were soundly beaten in their first game against Passage. Billy Nolan is playing up in the forwards. And I think what's really transformed their season is Nolan going back into that deep line centre back role. That's really turned their season around. And in turn, Gavin O'Brien has moved up to the forwards and is now taking the frees. Billy Nolan was taking the frees earlier on the championship. And O'Brien has absolutely exploded. He's got 2-19 in his last 2 matches. 2-8 against Lismore in Fairfield, 2-6 in the second half. And he got 11 points yesterday, 3 from play, and those 3 second half points, they were inspirational scores. He's shown great confidence on the frees. I think this is definitely his best season in a sky blue shirt. But all over the field, Shane, they just, they work their socks off. They do have players that have, featured on Watford underage sides in recent years. The likes of Rory Furlong is a real prospect. Cian Waddick, I mentioned earlier, really hard worker as well. And they have a couple of other, decent club players, like just Shane Mackey inside. Got a couple of points, was a real thorn in the side of Dungarvan. So they're a real united team unit, Shane. And they have been knocking on the door over the last couple of years. Like, no one would have expected at the start of the year, but they have been knocking on the door. They have been really competitive, and they fairly broke it down there yesterday.
Yeah, and what would you say then for Dungarvan? Because they're a team that people probably were looking to push through in the next, or over the years now at this stage. Like Ballygunner have obviously been beating everybody. But what about any of their players? If they kind of put their hand up in terms of 2022 under Liam Cahill, Michael Kiley scored a hat-trick the last day out, if I remember correctly. There was 2 Michael Kiley scoring goals on the field. And obviously Patrick Kern, see Darragh Lyons there playing centre-back. But those lads and anyone else, has anyone kind of shown something to Liam?
Yeah, I think Michael Kiley is one, Shane. I think Liam Cahill loved his work rate. I think one of the moments of the championship that really stands out was the opening night against De La Salle, below here in Fairfield, just down the road here in Dungarvan. And Michael Kiley was tracking back a De La Salle player, and he lost to Hurley, kept tracking him and actually blocked him down with his bare hands and out for a sideline. Like, that was brilliant stuff. And he's scoring freely too. I think he got 5-8 in the 4 matches, 5 goals in 4 games, decent return. And he was on Watford underage sides maybe 5 or 6 years back, never really make the breakthrough. Like, he's in his mid-20s, he's on the county football panel at the moment. He might be someone that Liam Cahill will have a look at. Darragh Lyons was exceptional yesterday, sweeping in front of the Roanmore full forward line. He'll be pretty close to the starting 15 for Watford next year again. Kieran Power had a decent outing. He's also on part of the Watford panel. Aside from that, don't think there's probably anybody else that'll break through. Dungarvan will be very disappointed, Shane. This is their fourth semi-final since they'd reached the county final back in 2012 against De La Salle. They've lost twice to Ballygunner in semi-finals, once now to Roanmore, once to Passage as well. This was their big opportunity to reach a county final and possibly take down the Gunners, who look a little bit more vulnerable than they have in previous years. So I think they'll be very disappointed with their second half performance. Their attack really misfired in that second half. I think they had 11 wides in total, just looking at it, 9 of those in the second half, and you have to be taking those opportunities if you're going to be winning county semi-finals.
So Peter Quealy's guided a 4-club to a senior decider, and I mean, I wonder at some stage, is he finally going to get the senior county job too? But he really seems to be able to work the oracle.
Oh, he certainly does, Shane. Like he's done it now with Ballygunner, he's done it with Passage, he's done it with Abbeyside, he's done it with Roanmore. There's definitely something about Peter Quealy. And he has been in the conversation in the past, to take over to the Watford senior job, but just hasn't got over the line for him. But he's gone back, he's worked at club level, and any Peter Quealy team, they absolutely work themselves into the ground. And Roanmore just did that yesterday again. And but look, he has one of the biggest tasks in his managerial career now to take down this Ballygunner juggernaut.
Yeah, we'll come to them in a second. A couple of comments coming in about different seasons, as you were mentioning at the start, 1998. Flash says, my favourite is definitely 2018. Even outside of Limerick, the quality of the hurling that summer was incredible from start to finish. I'd say that was probably the greatest hurling summer of all time, actually. Even though, again, not necessarily delighted to see a rival county win it, but it was something else.
It was. You just think of the semi-final weekend, wasn't it? Cork and Limerick and Galway and Clare, and it was an incredible weekend of hurling. But the round robins as well were pretty strong that year as well. But those I think that weekend really made 2018, didn't it?
Yeah. Are you looking forward to the return of the round robins?
I have a little mixed views about it, Shane. Obviously, like Munster is going to be really competitive. I mean, you're going to have to pick 3 out of those 5 to reach latter stages. I'd probably like it to see it a little bit more balanced. You might have 2 teams going out in Munster that might be better maybe than the second or third place team in Leinster. But look, for excitement, for week in, week out, do or die battles, it's going to be great when it returns, and especially when Waterford take on Tipperary in the first round in Welsh Park. That's going to be a sellout, I'm sure. But I think overall, I'd like to see it maybe a little bit more balanced. I think maybe even a mixture between the Munster and Leinster teams, I think.
Yeah, as I was saying to Michael Verney before, I'd like to see Munster be played out, Leinster be played out, and then the 2 league tables come together and all the Munster teams play their remaining games against the Leinster teams and vice versa, and have an overall table where all 10 teams or 11 teams have played each other once. The top, we'll say 6 then the top 2 get to All-Ireland semi-finals, the rest the 4 more get to quarter-finals, and then the rest go into a sort of relegation. I just think we have a huge opportunity to see so many brilliant games that you don't see year on year. Like, when did Clare last play Kilkenny in the championship? I don't know, but we should be seeing it every single year, and that's just one example, because it always strikes me that we don't see it. A couple of other comments in here. Sean O'Sullivan says, 98 famous in Watford, pushed the All-Ireland winners Clare to a Munster replay. Clare did a hatchet job the second game, had no business challenging them, give us so much hope, having left the top table.
Oh, Shane, I'll never forget Paul Flynn's free at the end of the 98 drawn game. It was a long distance out. Like, by today's standards, you'd expect someone to point it, but it was a long way out, and it just drifted in the wind, just drifted right and wide. And I remember people going out on the field after the game, going to the exact spot where the free was taken, just to kind of measure it up for themselves. But
were you one of them?
That was a great opportunity. No, I wasn't quite. But that was a great opportunity to win it that day. And sure, what happened the next day goes down in hurling history, doesn't it?
Yeah. That was a sore one, I'd say, Fee. And not just for lads' shins at the throw-in, I'd say it was a sore one for Watford overall. James Daly says, Shane, I didn't drink Finches for years as a young lad due to that tip jersey. As a Limerick man living tip to the close border, I couldn't bring myself to do it, he says. Do you talk about taking things personally? Do you know what that reminds me of? Do you remember for years, I actually don't know if it's the case at the moment, but Rangers and Celtic always had the same sponsor because so that the fans wouldn't boycott whatever the Rangers sponsor was, or vice versa. I think that was the case for a long time there. But anyway, that's another thing altogether. We'll move on to the Ballygunner and Mount Sion game here. Ballygunner going for 8 in a row. Austin Gleeson, obviously, we know is the star man on the Mount Sion side. They hadn't won it since 2006, so very few guys involved in the panel, I'd imagine, that have a county title. How close did they come here? Because I know there was drama.
Oh, there sure was, Shane. I think Mount Sion will be kicking themselves. I think they'll be wondering how they're not in a county final next Sunday. Ballygunner got out of jail, you have to say that. Mount Sion absolutely bombarded the Ballygunner goal in the last 10 minutes. Austin Gleeson got a point to bring it down to a 1-point game with 5 minutes to go, and Mount Sion missed, I think, 1-3 in the next 5 minutes after that. I think did a couple of balls short, did a wide, and then the goal chance for Alan Corwin. And any Waterford viewers that are tuned in remember Owen McGrath going for a goal up in Croke Park against Cork, 2007 quarter-final, point down. He went for the goal, and it was smothered inside. I think, as Dan Shanahan said, Sully's fat arse was on it. And Brian Gavin gave the free, and Waterford got the equaliser. Here again, there was a point for the taking, easy point for the taking, but fair play to Alan Corwin. He went for the juggler, went for the goal, and it was only a whisker past the post. I was asking Stephen O'Keefe afterwards how close it was. He said less than a foot. It was very close. It was down low. He had no chance. And that was the chance. That was the chance to land the knockout blow. Mount Sion had plenty of opportunities to do it. And up at the other end, Ballygunner held their nerve. Peter Hogan, Daisy Hutchinson got clutch points at big stages for Ballygunner. But like at the end, there must have been nearly every outfield player in around the Ballygunner square. There was ball after ball after ball going in. Stephen O'Keefe made a couple of good saves. Ronan Power saved an Austin Gleeson close range free. And you could just see the sense of relief at full time, Shane. It was like Ballygunner actually won a final. It was the closest they came to losing, I think, in 3 years. It was the first time in 3 years any team had got within and scored them in Waterford. And you could see how much it meant to them at the full-time whistle just to survive. Stephen O'Keefe admitted that they were lucky to get over the line in the end. But you look at that final quarter, Mount Sion had the chance to, Shane. They had 5 wides, they had 3 balls short. You have to convert those if you're going to knock down the champions.
Yeah, and did you feel that this was down to Ballygunner not quite, the fact that it was so close, was it down to Ballygunner not being at their usual level, or the fact that Mount Sion, after a few middling years, we'll say, are starting to kick back?
I think there's a little bit of both, Shane. I think teams are up in their game against Ballygunner. We saw that earlier on in the championship. Abbey Side did it blown up in Welsh Park. 4 Mile stuck with Ballygunner for 3/4 of the game. Again, missed vital chances in that game as well. I think Ballygunner are really missing Philip Mahoney at centre back, and also Tim O'Sullivan up front. They've been 2 key cogs. I mean, like, Philip Mahoney has been one of the top club hurlers in Watford over the last decade. Like, he's been central to Ballygunner's success, and without him, they do look a little bit vulnerable at the back. Mount Sion, ran through the middle constantly at that Ballygunner defence. 3 or 4 times definitely in the first half, a couple of times in the second half as well. There was one occasion Austin Gleeson broke free. I think it was between 65 and 45, and Paddy Levy just took him down, Sean Kavanagh style. Took the free, took the yellow card. You're not going anywhere. But there was a little bit of vulnerability. Stephen Roach made a couple of penetrating runs as well, was fouled for the penalty. So there are vulnerabilities there. And up at the other end, Tim O'Sullivan has been a really good ball winner, creating scores, creating chances for the other players around him. And another kind of aspect that Ballygunner will have to work on is, they've only scored 3 goals in this year's championship, I think. And they'd 1 good goal chance the last day. Peter Hogan went through the centre, but they're not scoring goals freely. They're not creating scoring chances maybe as freely as they did in other years. So, as a result, teams are getting a little bit closer to them. And I think also as well, Pádraig Mahoney still doesn't look 100% fit as of yet. Obviously, he's coming back from that long layoff from a cruciate knee ligament injury, last October before the 2020 championship. But, he missed 3 frees the last day that you wouldn't expect him to miss. So when you take those combined, when you take Ballygunner going back a little bit, the other teams, certainly gaining ground. The gap is a lot closer in Waterford than it has been in previous years.
Do you get a sense that Ballygunner's best chance to win an All-Ireland is behind them now? 2019, losing that Munster final to Borris-Ileigh, I'm fairly sure you were there that day. It was a dirty old day in Páirc Uí Rinn in Cork, and Borris-Ileigh upset the apple cart that day. But going back over the number of years there, Ballygunner just, routinely in the Munster Championship, obviously won one at one stage and then lost to Owlert the next day out in the All-Ireland semi-final, if I remember. Sorry, no.
Ballyhale Shamrocks.
Ballyhale Shamrocks, sorry, yeah, I'm mixing that up there. Do you think Ballygunner can still go and win a Club All-Ireland, or do you think there's any, you've kind of described a little bit in terms of maybe coming back into the pack. Philip Mahoney's not there. Pádraig Mahoney's obviously going to take a bit more time. Do you see them as All-Ireland contenders this year even?
Oh, that's a great question, Shane. Without Philip Mahoney... Yeah, without Philip Mahoney, I don't, to be honest. He just gives them such security at the back, covering in front of that full back line. He really he dictates the play. He's a playmaker as well from centre back. He is such a big loss to him, and look, he's not going to be back. He's on crutches. He had a broken leg. He actually injured himself, I think, during the summer, and he tried to make it back. Made a couple of appearances, but went out early against Abbeyside. I just think without Philip Mahoney, that they might just that they will fall short of an All-Ireland and maybe even a Munster, because certainly they got an almighty scare shaken on Saturday night. They were very, very relieved to get over the line. But I was listening to your chat there a couple of weeks back about best teams that haven't won an All-Ireland. Certainly, I think Ballygunner fall into that category. Probably Thurles Sarsfields as well in Munster. I think both of those teams, should have All-Irelands on the board. And
would you include De La Salle?
Yeah, absolutely. Best.
Is that what you were going to say?
Greatest club game of all time, De La Salle versus Clarenbridge.
Yeah.
2011 Semple Stadium. And that last minute goal. Ian Murphy, I think, from Clarenbridge. I think De La Salle cleared that ball a couple of times. I think they cleared it once, and I think there was a fist bump. I think they thought the final whistle was gone. That was their chance of winning an All-Ireland. Oh, it was heartbreaking. I think John Milan is described as the toughest loss of his career, and you can understand why. A classic, but it's hard to come out the wrong side of it. Another player I wanted to mention as well, Shane, Stephen O'Keefe.
Yeah.
I mean, again, he just showed again that he's the top dog in terms of Waterford goalkeepers the last day. I mean, Mount Sinai had a goal chance in the first half, Jamie Gleeson, and if it went in, Mount Sinai got 4 points up, and it was one of those brilliant one-on-one saves that O'Keefe makes, and just his coolness over the puck outs as well, just how precise he was. Just in injury time there, I think there was only a point in it, and he played a short puck out 1-2 with Ian Kenny. I don't think no other goalkeeper would have tried it at that stage. He would have tried to, land it up into the stand or whatever. But just everything about him, he is still definitely not only one of the best goalkeepers in Waterford, but one of the best goalkeepers in the country.
Do you get any sense that he'll be returning to the Waterford fold next year?
Hard to say, Shane. I know, Liam Cahill said that the door is always open to Stephen. I was chatting to him afterwards. He was up at the Galway game, I think, and he said he really missed it. He found it tough just watching the warm up. It was really, really difficult for him. I know he stepped away last December just to take some time out. I think he'd be a big addition. In fairness, the standard of goalkeeping in Waterford is very, very high at the moment. Quality across the board is really top drawer. You've obviously you've Sean O'Brien and De La Salle, you've Shawnee Barry and Liz Moore, you've Michael Ryan and Ballysaggart. Regan is still doing the business for Mount Sinai. You've Jack Chester in Roanmore, you've Darren Duggan in Dungarvan. There's plenty of competition there, but O'Keefe tops a lot for me, and he'd be a huge addition if he was back. in 2022.
Sean O'Sullivan tweeted in saying that the Waterford News and Star have a team of the week for Waterford, and Jack Chester in particular might be worth a look. There's also a comment here from ML89. Could a harder championship than usual help Ballygunner in the Munster All-Ireland series? They've been caught a lot outside Watford, albeit they've still yet to win Watford this year. Is there anything in that?
Well, it's certainly been competitive this year, Shane, that's for sure. Maybe in previous years it hasn't helped them. Though they usually, even in the county titles where they've won, seemingly at a canter, they've usually had one tough test that they've had to emerge from. I think maybe at times in Munster they maybe lacked maybe a bit of a ball winner up front, particularly when you remember that battle with Borris-Ileigh up in Páirc Uí Rinn. Now they do have Barry O'Sullivan who can do that job for them, but maybe they need maybe one or two of those players. That's maybe where they've been found wanting in Munster and the All-Ireland series at times.
Yeah, how much of an impact? Sorry, I was going to say how much of an impact did Ozzie Gleeson have in the game? More so, how much focus did Ballygunner put in terms of trying to shut Austin Gleeson down? Because I suppose most people thought he's going to have a big game here if Ballygunner are going to be beaten. Yeah,
interesting one. I think a lot of people would have expected before the game, Shane, that Barry Coughlin would have followed Austin Gleeson wherever he goes, and he probably would have tracked Gleeson if he went in on digital square, but he actually lined out a wing forward. So Shane O'Sullivan has been filling in at centre-back for Ballygunner in the absence of Phil Mahoney. So he actually came out to the wing and Tadhg Foley went centre-back. So O'Sullivan kind of did a little bit of a man-marking job on Gleeson, but because he was out on the wing, he was actually on the fringes of the game, probably up until the penalty incident, and then he buried the penalty and he really came into his own then for the rest of the half. Added a point, and one of the big plays of the game was Pádraig Mahoney was winding up for a point. Gleeson came in, intercepted, laid it off to Stephen Roach for a point, and you thought at that stage Mount Sinai really motoring, but it was a mixed bag from Ozzie. Look at the second half. I think he did 3 wides in the third quarter, 1 ball short. He had 1 ball short in the last quarter as well. He had a wide and a ball short in the first half. He did end up at 1-4, 1-2 from place balls, but I think he could have got definitely a bigger return when you look at the shots that he missed, particularly early on in that second half.
Well, where do you see him going career-wise? He's only just gone 26, which is mad when you think about it, because he's been on the scene for so long. What are you expecting from him next year? What did you make of him this year, actually?
I think he was really consistent this year, Shane. I think he's really put together 2 solid back-to-back seasons for Waterford, you have to say. I like to see him up in the half-forward line, midfield half-forward line, as close to goal as you can get him, because if you're an opposition manager, you don't want Austin Gleeson running at you. You don't want him in front of your own goal. You want him as far out the field as you want him. I think he's looked really sharp the last few years. He's obviously done a lot of work in terms of his strength and conditioning side off the field as well. I still think there's a couple of good years to come from Austin Gleeson, Shane. I suppose like the difficult thing when you're talking about Austin Gleeson, when you're talking about Tony Kelly, when you're talking about Joe Canning, when he was hurling for Galway, their ceiling is so high, the expectations are so high for every game, and they're judged off that. Unless Ozzie scores 5 or 6 points from play, he's had a bad day.
Yeah.
That's the reality. But I think if you look over the last 2 seasons, he's produced solidly on the big days for Waterford. I think he's bought in to what Liam Cahill wants from him. He's absolutely, worked his socks off in every game. That's what Liam Cahill demands. I think the message has got through loud and clear to Ozzie, and he's going to play a major role in whether Waterford are going to climb those steps next year, Shane.
True. The Waterford relegation playoff between De La Salle and Ballysaggart, geez, that was called off there on Friday night. Bit of a disaster, floodlight failure. That was something that almost happened in Tipperary a few weeks beforehand. The generator and the backup generator failed, but they eventually got it going again. But wasn't the case at Fraher Field, so that was a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, deja vu, Shane. It happened as well 5 years ago, but actually during the game, Ballygunner against Abbeyside. Abbeyside were a goal up with 15 minutes to go, and I think Pádraig Mahoney was taking a free, and lights out, and they didn't come back on, and the game had to be refixed, and back to 0-0 again, and Ballygunner blew Abbeyside away in the replay. lot of every side people still remember that game, not for the right reasons. And they put in a different system since with the floodlights. Used to come on all at once. Now they come on one at a time to take maybe 10 or 15 minutes to come on. They were nearly on, and then they went off. I think they failed on 3 occasions after that. And look, again, generator failure. Look, these things happen. It's nobody's fault. It's just one of those freak occurrences. Obviously disappointment for both sets of players. Like, some players would have, I think, travelled down from Dublin in some cases. Like, they would have been working up in Dublin, like, for the game. So that's tough. Ballysaggart stayed on the field for the duration of it. They seemed pretty keen to, get this game on, get this game going. And there's actually a bit of crack flying around, when the Ballysaggart players was going in towards the stand just to find out what was going on. And then he said, sure, we'll toss for senior status next year. And all this was going on. One other lad said, we'll go for a pint in the Park Hotel nearby or whatever. Like, so there was a bit of crack. There was a bit of crack flying around. But look, they're going to go at it again now next Saturday. And got the crowd at it, Shane. It was unbelievable. It was like a county final crowd. I think there was something like 1,200 tickets sold for it. Stand was packing up. Lots of people over on the bank in the complete pitch darkness. And huge interest in it. Like, a lot at stake. I think 9 Watford panelists involved between the two sides, 6 for De La Salle, 3 Bennett brothers, obviously, in Ballysaggart. So they go head-to-head again next Saturday night, I think, 7 o'clock in Fairfield, and there'll be a fair bit of interest in it again, I'd say.
Yeah. Geez, just the way the Ballysaggart season happened, they could have won all 3 games and they ended up losing 2 of 3. It's been a good introduction to senior. Can I ask you about what are you expecting from Watford next year, 2022? Liam Cahill has decided to stay on. You went up and interviewed him, which was a very revealing interview. I thought it was very good. But is the pressure now on, because a big decision was kind of, I don't know what you say it was forced on him, but obviously Tipperary came calling. So all of a sudden he's got a huge decision in front of him. What are your thoughts over 2022 now that Liam Cahill has gone with Watford?
Well, I think Liam Cahill has to deliver silverware in 2022, Shane. There's absolutely no question about that. And he would say that himself. He makes no bones about it. The next obvious step for Watford is to achieve a trophy. The last title that Watford achieved was back in 2015, the National League, under Derek McGrath. You have to go back to 2010 for the last Munster, and obviously 59 for the last All-Ireland. But they've beaten every major county in league or championship, including Limerick in the league. Obviously, they've proved a real stumbling block when it comes to the championship. But next year is all about silverware for Watford. Is the bottom line. As you said, Liam Cahill has made a major commitment for next year. He believes in these players. He believes that they can kick on and achieve big trophies. And I think Liam Cahill's decision is a real vote of confidence in that group of players. And they'll surely be going back into training, feeling 10 feet tall, feeling that this management team really believe in us. So, look, it's straightforward, Shane. Silverware will be the measure for success for Watford next year.
Yeah. I'm going to bring in Terence Sambo McNaughton here. If you just hang on the line for a few minutes there, Tomas, and I'll just bring in Sambo. Sambo, how are you doing? Can you hear me there, Sambo? We're having a small bit of trouble with the line, so hopefully that comes right in a minute there. I'm just going to drop Sambo out there again for a second. We are hoping to talk about the Antrim Senior Hurling Championship. It was a brilliant weekend there. But we'll jump onto Tipperary for the moment. Hopefully Sambo's line will clear up a little bit. These kind of things can happen with live shows, as you know, Tomas.
Yeah, absolutely, Shane. And I know Borris-Ileigh were on television yesterday, live on TG Cahir. What did you make of that game?
I'd have to say it was a fairly septic game. I would have to be totally honest about that. It wasn't a great advertisement. The weather was terrible. The game started out with a flurry of wides. So you know yourself, that's always the recipe for a fairly turgid affair. And then Nina had only 4 points scored after 45 minutes. So it started out with both teams kind of misfiring, lots of wides, terrible weather, and then just Nina. I just thought a very, very poor performance. I presume you feel similarly about the fair that was on show.
Oh, well, look, it's winter hurling, Shane. It was just the showers, the wind and the rain yesterday was atrocious. It was a real spoil sport, wasn't it? Actually, below in Welsh Park yesterday, I saw two occasions the hurley slipped out of players' hands. Billy Nolan was taking a free at one stage, and the hurley just flew out of his hand, went into the stand, and in the second game, the intermediate final, the goalie was taking a puck out, and the hurley went flying after he connected with the puck out. So, like really, really treacherous conditions for hurling yesterday. But in terms of Borris, Shane, like, how do this team compare to the team that won Munster a couple of years back?
Well, it's probably not all that different. I mean, last year, Johnny Kelly wasn't involved, and Martin Maher, who I grew up playing with the whole way up, he was involved. He's a brother of Brendan Maher. So they're not all that different in a way. I mean, there is a certain amount of long ball that you'll see in there going long on Niall Kenny and Conor Kenny. Both of them operate on the inside line a lot. Now, not all the time, but Niall Kenny is probably 6'6", 6'7". Conor, nicknamed Moose, he's 6'3" or 6'4". And Conor is definitely the more free scoring forward. So you get the ball into him and there's going to be trouble. Like Nina, you could see very much were struggling with the ball that was going inside. So Barry Heffernan went from, my view on the TV was he was playing the half backline / sweeper, and then he had to move back into the full backline. So you're talking about a county player who can collect short ball and drive out past an opposition half backline through midfield and set up attacks. He has to be decommissioned in a way in terms of an attacking force because he's moved back to the inside line. Brendan Maher had been playing further up the field in the previous outings, and he was moved back to wing back. So you remember against Ballygunner, he was kind of playing, he was wearing number 6, but probably playing wing back in those games against Ballygunner and St. Thomas. He was back in that position again. I think that suited him better. Burris probably just drive too many balls to the clouds of my liking. Like Dan McCormack was brilliant sweeping from centre back. Just won an amount of ball, driving out with it all day, but probably too much of it went to the clouds. So the half forward line wasn't in it as much as it could have been. And that's kind of been Burris's, I wouldn't say failing, but just something that can definitely be improved on, is getting a little bit more to the half forward line and working it that way. I thought Seamus Burke was brilliant in the full back line. JD, James Devaney, his drive and run up through the centre led to the goal. So there was good and bad, but you'd have to say from Nina, it was very poor. The free taking killed him. It was actually odd seeing Jake Morris taking frees towards the end of the game. It looked like a guy who doesn't take them all that often because his style was a little bit odd, but he was not.
Has he ever taken free, Shane, for Club or County, Jake Morris?
I just haven't seen it. I mean, maybe he does now and again. I just haven't seen it. I haven't seen him do it for the county. I'm even trying to think for that under 20 and under 21 team a few years ago. I don't think he did. Now, maybe I just have a bad memory and someone will correct me. But no, I mean, good win for Borris-Ileigh because it was winner takes all. And the other group game, Killerwan, they beat Ross Gray, but that was a dead rubber because Killerwan are also are already through. I'm going to try and bring Sambo in again. Sambo, how are you doing?
Hey Shane, how's it going?
Good. You must have changed phone or device or something like that. You're clear as a bell now.
I wasn't getting it through in the tablet, so my technology and it's not just.
Yeah. I hear. Can I ask you about a massively dramatic weekend in the Antrim Hurling Championship? It was semi-final weekend for anyone who doesn't know that. So Donovan Rossa beat your own Cushendall 418 to 320, and Dunloy they saw off St. John's 119 to 13 points. They'll be looking for a 3 in a row. But can you explain some of the drama in the Rossa win, because it's the first county title that are decided are going to get to since winning in 2004. And it was a late goal from substitute Dara Rocks. Like, it was complete drama.
Yeah, it was crazy. We thought we had it won. We were 7 points down, and came back. We got a fortunate goal then, bring us into the game. Then we thought we'd have won. With a puck out, we pucked it out, maybe wrongly to the extra man. He launched it in. Michael Armstrong caught it, laid it off, and ball in the back of the net, and game over. Like, but. Arguably, probably the two best teams in Antrim are in the final now.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing we talked about a couple of years ago, I did a piece with you, and you were talking about hurling in Belfast and, trying to make strides there. So we have a Belfast team getting through, and then St. John's, a West Belfast team. They're probably somewhat aggrieved with a disallowed goal, and they could have had it back to a point with 12 minutes to go there. Is there improvements coming in Belfast hurling?
Oh, there is, without a doubt. But there's always been good hurlers in Belfast and that there. It's just getting that whole team environment going. But No, there is an urgency with St John's and Rossa in particular, and out there. No, they're still on my shout. But I kind of said at the start of the year that when all their huffing and puffing's over, whoever's going to win this is going to have to beat Dunloy, and I still believe that's the case. But well, capable of causing upset now.
I'm just going through I was looking at the match report, and it was like last year, Rossa lost to Dunloy, and you're talking about, but it's back-to-back wins over Cushidaw. But the way this game panned out, Rossa were down by 3 points deep into injury time. Paddy McGill, he'd scored a goal after a bit of a mix-up. Then Rossa somehow, I think it was Jared Walsh, his free went over to bring it back to 2. Then Walsh moved up from midfield to full back after the breaks and did a high ball, plucked out the air from Michael Armstrong. He'd had, I think, a pretty quiet first half, or Neil McManus had given him trouble. Was he full back on Neil McManus, and he'd had a rough time, and he moved up to full forward and he ended up scoring 2 goals?
Well, Michael Armstrong's probably, in my opinion, one of the best Antrim hurlers this past number of years. Not there, like when we were last there with the county not there, we made great strides in trying to get him on it. Then he got a bad injury, and he plays football, and he suffers a bit from injury not there, but he's a real ball winner, and he's one of my favourite hurlers in Antrim. But he was getting a rough time. McManus was finding space at times and not there. And McManus was playing championship hurling. They moved him up, and he was allowed to catch a ball on the edge of the square. And rather than trying a ball in the china shop thing, he was good enough and smart enough to lay it off, and then it was an easy tap in for there. But no, Michael Armstrong's a serious bit of stuff now.
Yeah. And do you see, like, what was do you think Cushidaw misfired in any way? Was it just the way it panned out?
Oh, like we made a lot of mistakes. I think both management, Rossa came out at the very start, and their plan was pretty obvious. They were going to target our full back line, and the Rossa management, it worked for them, and they were good enough to know that, and they went at us, and the 4 goals, we wouldn't have been happy with any of the 4 goals really, and that there from a club point of view and demand, but it is what it is. But no, Rossa were well deserved their one, but the mistakes were made at the very dying. Probably our goalkeeper should have not poked the ball out to Jared Walsh standing free, would have been the first thing, and he went back as kind of a sweeper, and then he just launched it into the square, and a hit and hope sort of ball that you do all the time and out there. But Michael Armstrong was allowed to catch it, and it shouldn't have. We should at least have broke the ball, if nothing else. But I don't think both managers have been happy with their defences over there. But Ross has got room to improve, and they'll give Dunloy all they want. They've got nice hurlers. Beatty's a real threat. Armstrong, wherever he goes, is a threat. They've young Murphy there is deadly on the freeze, and coming out there, and Shannon and people like that. No, Ross is a team in the up, and they're hungry for it. If there's any team that should be hungry, it should be Rossa.
Yeah, and Dunloy having won the last couple, do you sense that the hunger is in them to win 3 in a row in 4 or 5 years?
That was a strange game, Shane. St John's went into that game probably underdogs as they should, and then getting a man sent off in the first 2-3 minutes it's kind of like the crowd just here we go, that's going. But Dunloy never really pushed on them. St John's went, I think, 23 minutes or something without scoring from play, and Dunloy only were 3 points ahead at that time, and they weren't really getting out. And other than Keelan Malloy, he was doing what Keelan does, taking the game to him and that there. But Dunloy wasn't really firing on all cylinders either. And then after the water break, they got the goal and things like that. But I'd have to say the conditions in the Dunloy game was horrendous for any sort of hurling. We've all played in them sort of days, and balls skipping about and the rain thundering down. It was horrible conditions for any sort of hurling. But St John's deserve great credit because they're in the game more or less right on to the end, even with 14 men.
Yeah, I was reading the match report by Kenny Archer, and he was talking about St. John's were unhappy beforehand about the appointment of referee Kevin Park, and more unhappy afterwards because of the goal for Big Donald Nugent being ruled out, because they would have only trailed by a point with 12 minutes to go. And he says, Brian McFall said afterwards, he didn't have an issue with the red card that happened early on, but he did say, I don't want to say too much. I don't want to get myself in bother, but some of the decisions I just couldn't fathom with that referee. I just cannot explain the turn of that game. We got a goal and he didn't give it. I can't understand it. I'd love to know why. That was a crucial part of the game. We were coming back into it. Is he justified in saying that?
Well, I suppose, to be honest, in that there, I'm probably not going to get myself in the ball here, but
yeah,
the big talking points in both games was the refereeing. Now, the red card thing, I wasn't that close to it, but it is what it is. When you poke somebody now and that there, it was probably not meant. It was probably, maybe 10 years ago you got away with like that, a poke at that start of the game and you'd have got to tell them off. But it is what it is. And I spoke to people that were beside him. They said the ref had no choice. To be fair to the ref, he consulted his linesman and made a decision. But the penalty thing that Deloy ended up getting a free out for it. I'm not sure what the free was for. Like, I couldn't understand why Donald Nugent would foul in that situation when he was going through. He was the one that was causing the problems. He wasn't going to give away a free at that stage. And that there was a few calls in both games that were iffy in that there. But at the end of the day, Deloy were always going to win, and Rossa thoroughly deserved their victory too. So, from a cushion to all point of view, we couldn't say that the referee lost us a game. Or St. John's will not be able to say that either. Like, it was what it was, but there was a few decisions in the other games where you're always going to question. Like,
okay, and then just even sort of an early preview of the final. What way do you see that going? Just Dunloy, the fact that they've been there and done it against the Rossa team that obviously it's 0-4.
Yeah, well, it's past number of years I've always been impressed with the life forward line, and I always thought their Achilles heel, you could have got their backs, but their backs were very good yesterday, saying that they were an extra man up, but they allowed Conor McKinley. St. John's allowed Conor McKinley to go free a lot of time, and he's the one boy you don't want. He's very athletic and comes out with a ball and he uses it really well and that there. But Deloy's backs were good, saying that they had an extra man for the whole game. But no, I think Ross is going to give it everything here. They've nothing to lose. They will be underdogs. I would say everybody will make Deloy favourites, and rightly so. Deloy have got the respect. They're going for 3 in a row. But it could be a good kind of final.
We haven't I don't think we've talked since the end of the inter-county season, Sam, but like, how do you reflect on Antrim's year there? Because it looked very good in the league, and then the championship, it was a heavy defeat to Dublin, and then very disappointing to go down to the Joe McDonagh after losing to Laois. I was at that game in Parnell Park. So how would you reflect on the year?
Well, to be honest, Shane, I ended up disappointed. We got off to a great start and we showed great heart in the league, and I was really pleased with the way things were going. But against Dublin and Laois and that there, we didn't play with the same intensity, we brought championship hurling to the league and we didn't bring it to championship. I don't know if that's a fair remark, but I felt we didn't have the same energy or the same desire as we had in the league. Like, against Wexford and against Clare, we showed great fight, great spirit, but that seemed to be gone against Laois and gone against Dublin. Like, we ended very disappointed. Though we stayed up in the league, which was probably the most important thing at the start of the year. We got another go with the big boys, but it was very disappointment going back to the Joe McDonagh, and we're going to find it very hard next year on the league's going to be very hard. We're not coming in under the radar, and there's real good teams in Offaly's on the up, and Westmeath or Carlow and things like that. There's Antrim's going to find it hard in the coming year.
Yeah. Are there players coming through? Is there anyone that Darren Gleeson will be looking to draft in that you've noticed?
Well, I actually seen Darren at the matches yesterday night there. Like, I don't know, like, the one guy I'd be going for, and I mentioned earlier, Michael Armstrong, and he's not a young guy, he's been around a long time, but he plays the football as well. But I don't know. Yeah, of course there's here and there, but are they ready to step up? Like, in our own club, we have a young guy, Scott Welch here, who was probably our best man yesterday. Is he ready for inter-county scene? But maybe not full on, but he should definitely be making that step up. There's a few, yeah, but I don't know. it's hard to say at the minute. Like the Dunloy St John's game wasn't a great game of hurling. It wasn't classic. It was kind of, once the sending off and happened, it kind of fittered out. You always knew the end result no matter what happened. Kind of that way. The scoreline made our game exciting, but again, like there was a lot of mistakes from both teams in that there, and you have to call it how you see it, and I think that's it. But our under-20s weren't great this year. Our minors, a lot of work to do there. I don't know. There's maybe but watching young fellas at under-16s and that throughout the county, there is good hurlers there coming through. But we need to start making that gap from under-16s to minor to 21 and that there. We don't seem to be doing that, Shane. Like our under-20 team this year was very disappointing.
Yeah, and then just a final question before I let you go. Well, what are your thoughts on the overall pecking order in hurling at the moment? Limerick, again, they've won relatively, well, very comprehensively, 2 All-Ireland finals in a row by a combined 27 points. Do you see anyone being able to challenge them next year? I mean, obviously, Colin Bonner's after taking over with Tipperary, Tomas here, his county, Watford, Liam Cahill's staying. We don't know what will happen with Galway yet, although Micheál Donoghue looks like the man who'll be back in. Do you think anyone can challenge Limerick next year?
And a short answer, Shane, no.
No?
I just think that Limerick team, it's nearly a perfect storm for them and out there. And like it's a bit like, we'll all hop off and good leagues and all this here. But I think when it comes down to that, Limerick team they're like a perfect storm. Like, I don't know, like maybe if they get a couple of key injuries and things like that, you don't know down through the years. But sitting here today, Limerick just seem to be that far ahead of the rest of the pack at the minute. There's Limerick, and then there's 3 or 4 teams maybe chasing them. There's 3 or 4 chasing the teams that are chasing them. And I have to be honest, I before they won the All-Ireland, I was managing them, and I seen we played Limerick out here in their own pitch, and they basically came up with a reserve team, and you could just see signs of their strength and depth, their physique, their physical, their hurling, everything about them. They seem to have a good management set up. They seem to be grounded fellas. They're athletic, and they just seem to love their hurling. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of every team. Obviously, every other team, like the Tips and the Clares and the Corks and Galway's not there. Like, I thought at the start of the year, Galway would be the team that maybe could give Limerick a rattle, but Galway kind of faded away too. I don't know. If me and you were sitting in a pub now, I'd tell you, Limerick's going to win the All-Ireland next year.
And then, I'm sure you obviously came up against Colin Bonner a number of times. Would you have known him? Would you know him away from the field, or what was he even like on the field?
Yeah, well, I've obviously played against him my generation, and then I managed against him with Carlow and that there. When Antrim and Carlow were really battling it out, and we got a couple of great results off Carlow, and it came down to the wire and things like that there. But no, like Colin will get in there with I'm sure he's obviously a good hurling man, good backroom team. He'll get a lift. All new managers get that first year, enthusiasm and that there, and there's no doubt that Tipperary have the stick men and the quality and that there. But like I don't know. I hope somebody beats Limerick, because we all as neutrals, we want to see it going around. I would love to see a Cork, Clare, somebody, but like your neighbour there sitting beside you in the Waterford, everybody would love to see Waterford win an All-Ireland. But my own views to this moment in time, I hope I'm wrong for the good of hurling, but I just can't see by Limerick.
Okay, well, look, brilliant. Thanks very much for joining us, Sam. I really appreciate you doing that and juggling all the different devices to get it working right for us.
No problem, Shane. I'll try and get me up to date in this technology before the next time.
You're improving all the time. Thanks very much, Sambo. All the best.
Bye.
Okay, brilliant to chat to Sambo McNaughton as always. Haven't had him on in a while, but it is great to talk to him. And yeah, definitely one of the legends of that era, as the comments saying coming in. That's fair to say, Tomas.
Oh, it's great to hear the passion in Sambo's voice. Just his love of Antrim hurling and hurling in general. We need hurling people like that all over the country, and it's great to just hear the passion in his voice. And hard to disagree with what he's saying as well, Shane.
Yeah, absolutely. Are we feeling a little bit glum about the chances of dethroning Limerick next year?
Yeah, it's going to be a hell of a task, Shane. Absolutely. There's just a couple of things to throw into the mix. You have the round robin, which will make it more difficult for Limerick to retain their title. Just to emerge from Munster is going to be a big task. And I just wonder about their strength and depth at times. Like Peter Casey looks like he'll probably miss next year's championship as well. They'll have to find a replacement from him. And is the backup as strong as the 15 that they fielded in the All Ireland final, which is definitely John Kiley's first choice 15. He'll want players to be challenging, but it's hard to see who will be challenging, who will shake it up next year for Limerick. So there's maybe a couple of flies in the ointment at the moment. Look, I'd say Watford probably number 2 in the country. Cork, that's going to take a while to recover from an All Ireland defeat like that. Tipperary seem to be rebuilding. Kilkenny will be there or thereabouts. Galway are going to be under new management as well. So there's question marks about the contenders as well, Shane. Probably Waterford number 2. But look, even with those few doubts about Limerick included, you still have to say that they're still top dogs.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that first round of Munster next year, Tipperary going down to Walsh Park, and we'll see now if Watford are number 2 or not.
It's amazing, isn't it, Shane? Like you have, Liam Cahill, a tip man managing Waterford, and you have, Colin Bonner living in Waterford managing Tip. So they're both meeting each other on the road, nearly going down to train, and Bonner has really embedded himself in WIT. Like he's part of the fabric of that, GA club and the great success that they've had at Fitzgibbon Cup level. And this is definitely the biggest managerial job of his career. Like he's been there with, Wexford, he's been there with Carlow, he's been there with WIT. But this is a big step up and it'll be a big challenge. And there'll be skin and hair flying, I'd say, Shane, that tape blown wet far.
There definitely will. How is he regarded in WIT and in local circles there at Watford? He's living in Dunhill, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And his son Killian was playing yesterday for Dunhill. They won Eastern Intermediate. They're going to be playing in the county final next week. Very highly regarded in WIT, Shane. The success speaks for itself. Really, like playing and managing for WIT. And he's brought, He's managed numerous different sides. Like it wasn't just one great team. He built a number of different teams, and even teams on paper that look like average WIT teams, he could still bring to a final or maybe even win if it's given. So he's brought through so many players from different counties around the southeast together in WIT. He's very highly regarded, but this is a step up. There is definitely a rebuilding job on the way in Tipperary, player-wise and style-wise as well, and it's a big job of work ahead of Colin Bonner. There's no question about that.
It's interesting though, because Colin Bonner's quotes from RT over the weekend kind of tally with my own. He goes, if I can get 15 lads all on the same wavelength, I've no doubt that we're going to be a match for any team out there. A bit of luck on any day and you could be Munster champions or you could be bottom of the 5. There's a small bit of pessimism in Tip. People think that there's going to be a transition, which you're saying, and some of the younger players are going to have to get involved. I don't see it that way. If I get the right mix there and get a bounce, this could happen very quickly. That's what I believe, and that's why I'm here. I want to get the best out of these lads, not next year or the year after. I want to get it as quick as I can. I feel we've the ability in the dressing room to do that. I don't buy the talk of transition myself, because there's too many hurlers there with potential and coming into the right age. They've lacked the exposure and game time, and compared with the Cork team of 2018 and 19 under 2021, the Tip lads are behind 2 or 3 years in terms of senior exposure. Cork have thrown all those lads out there. But to me, I now at this stage, months and months away from the season starting, I'm already thinking, look, Tip need to be hitting the ground running. And even if other people aren't thinking that way in Tip, I think as soon as the league starts, the patience will go. If you take a few heavy beatings or start losing to teams that you feel should be beaten, I think patience will wear very thin very quickly. Do you think that's unfair? Do you think that's unrealistic of me as a Tip person saying it? Because obviously there's partly, passion in there for Tip. No,
I definitely see where Colin Bonner is coming from. I mean, there's still a bit left in, Seamus Callan, Noel McGrath, Bubbles, Pádraig Maher. they're not good. These players are not going to be discarded by any matter of means, but it's, the players next in line will really have to start stepping up. And, the players that have won those 2021 titles under Liam Cahill, are they going to emerge as leaders over the next couple of years? And they'll probably have to if Tipperary are going to get over the line. But Tipperary will still be in contention for Munster and Ireland silver next year, Shane. They should be with the calibre of player that they still have. The question is, will the next players in line step up to the mark? The players that have won those underage titles. That's the big question. And how will Colin Bonner gel it all together? And what sort of style will we see from Tipperary next year?
Yeah, I might come to one or two of those players in a second and their performances over the weekend. But Adam English or Cathal O'Neill to fill that Casey void for Limerick, says Sean. Also, Barry Murphy, he did his crucial recently for Doon, so he's another player that will be out of contention. But a couple of those two players in particular named by Sean, they are serious players or of serious potential. Liam Linehan says, Limerick man questioning, could Galway recover their form with a new manager and younger players? Is the youth coming through? For example, Evan Nyland looks a very good forward. I mean, to me, Evan Nyland should have been starting this year. Maybe not everyone would agree, but I think he looks hugely talented. Like, you were there watching Watford go 16 points up with 14 men and then Galway bring it back to 3. But next year, if you build that forward line around Nyland, Cathal Mannion, Brian Kincannon, Conor Whelan, and those last 3 all heading into their peak years, between the ages of 24 and 28 or whatever, that neck of the woods. I mean, there's not too many counties with players of that proven class to build a team around.
Yeah, Galway will definitely be up there, Shane. They'll have to get this management situation sorted, sooner rather than later.
I'm hearing it's Donoghue.
Micheál Donoghue. Yeah, it looks like Micheál Donoghue at the moment. And if Donoghue is coming back, he's only coming back for one reason, and that's to win an All-Ireland. And as you say, the quality players are there. It was so Jekyll and Hyde, wasn't it? Just that day up in Thurles. They were completely flat and then just exploded in the last couple of minutes, just to show what they're capable of. And you still like Pádraig Mannion, Cathal Mannion, they'll be leaders. Dahi Burke, he was betwixt and between. He was centre back, he was full back, he was centre back, he was full back. He'll probably be back at number 3 next year as well, and build the back line around them. But there's certainly the quality of players there in Galway to contend again for Leinster and Ireland, I think. And especially with Donoghue back, that'll be a big boost to them.
Yeah, I see John O'Sullivan here saying, can't understand how little Paddy Cadell has played for Tip. He should have been a guaranteed starter for the past 2 years. He's definitely a player who I've been pumping for the last kind of year or two, that I thought he should have seen more game time. I think he will now. I mean, I was watching J.K. Brackens, his club, lose to Lockmore Castellini 21 points to 113 on Friday night. And what I mentioned already about Barry Heffernan, the way he takes possession and just drives out through. And you need that. You see that with your Watford team the whole time. And you're going to have Iarla Daly and probably Tadhg de Borca hopefully back next year. And they're 2 lads who can drive out. But Paddy Cadell just constantly driving out with the ball and dragging 2 or 3 Lockmore lads with him as he's horsing up the field. And I think Brackens, for a team that were Seamus O'Reen, so the second tier in the senior Tipperary the last couple of years, up until a couple of years ago, they've been really good. They pushed they pushed Killidangan very close. They beat McCarthy Borris. And they lost 21 points to 113 the other evening. And Lockmore have that sort of class and that experience. They've, the 2 McGrath brothers there. Actually, sorry, the 3 McGrath brothers, and Brian McGrath was probably one of the lads who kind of stood up. But they were quite good, and Paddy Cadell was very good the other night. Another team, Killidangan, I actually think are the front runners for the Tipperary Championship. Wouldn't it have been interesting to see? I'm not sure how much you would have seen Killidangan, but it's a shame for them that they didn't actually get to play the Munster Championship last year after finally winning a senior title. Yeah,
look, you can look at both ways. I suppose they had the opportunity to celebrate a county title and enjoy it, even though there was COVID restrictions around at the time. I'm wondering about Thurles Sarsfields though, Shane. They've been kind of a sleeping giant maybe for the last couple of years. I'm hearing very good things about them. Are they the team to beat? I know you have a fancy for Killidangan there, but how are Thurles Sarsfields looking?
I would actually put Killidangan as the favourites, and I think Thurles, Borris-Ileigh, Lockmore, you can never really rule them out. After that, I'm not really sure. Do I see Mullinahone winning it? I'm not sure if I see Clonoulty winning it. And after that, there's teams that are going to come through, like Killinall are still in it. They're going to play a preliminary quarter-final after winning the South. But Thurles, they were good the other day. Like they've battered the teams in their group. Like, so they've beaten Drum, they hammered Aero, Gannacarty, and they beat Upperchurch by 10 on Saturday. It was on Saturday, in Templemore. And I watched the game and I thought, they're a good team and the sort of team that will batter poor teams or average teams. You know the way some teams, you'd see Mayo over the years. They'll be in a qualifier against the team that you think they'll beat by 10, and for some reason they'll play at that team's level and only squeak over the line. Whereas Thurles are the sort of team that, and I mean this as a compliment, they're able to hammer a fairly average team. But then I'm not convinced from what I saw that they'll win a county title this year. I think they're pretty good, but Ronan Maher there at centre back, he's kind of at the peak of his power now. I think he might have been jumping from wing to centre back. You know yourself, it can be hard to tell when you're watching on the stream. Paddy Creedon is a really good young forward. But I don't know, I'm not ultimately convinced by them yet, even though they put up 324. But it was unbelievably dramatic in the way that they beat Upperchurch Strombat. So how dramatic can a game where somebody wins by 10 points be, especially for the team that's hammered? So what happened was Upperchurch, based on how the game between Drum and Inch and Gannacarty Donahill went, Upperchurch needed to lose by 10 points or fewer to get through. And I was watching the stream. It was gas crack watching this because Paul Jenkins and I think it was Ken Hogan. They were trying to figure out on the fly how many points Upperchurch needed to win by. And obviously the crowd were there cheering on Upperchurch as they get a point to go from 11 points behind to 10. But they ended up doing that in like really deep into injury time. And then Ronan Maher scored a point from about 100 yards to put Thurles 11 ahead. And I think all of the injury time should have been done at that stage. But then the 68th minute out of 60, Paul Ryan gets a free on the sideline. Now, he hadn't been on the frees in the first half, and he was unbelievable on them once he took over from Porrick Green. He was absolutely class on them. He knocks over a free from the sideline, and the ref continues to let play go again. Final whistle goes. Lose by 10 points and they're in as a second seed. I mean, how much confidence can you have going into a quarter-final after getting beaten by that much?
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. A similar kind of a story emerged in Waterford as well in the intermediate. Cashmore lost by 10 points in a game, and if they lost by 9, they would have been through to a semi-final. So they lost in the semi-final by a single point after winning their previous 3 group games. And they'd won their previous 3 matches without Tide de Bork, who didn't play any club hurling for Clashmore Kinsale-Beg, and Brian O'Halloran as well, who was injured too. But lost by 10. If they lost by 9, they were into a semi-final, but they were dumped out. So get the calculators out.
Yeah. I'll just run through some of the other results in Tipperary. Drum and Inch, they beat Éire Óg by 215 to 116, but both of the teams are out. Éire Óg will be in relegation for the second successive year. In Group 2, Mullinahone beat Toomevara by 13 points. Jack Shelley was brilliant, scored 2-5. Mikey O'Shea was very good, especially late on. Owen Kelly and Paul Curran still raging against the dying light for Mullinahone, who had these crazy sort of black jersey, bit of red trim, and sort of like electric sort of shocks all over the jersey. It was wild stuff. But Toomer reduced to 14 men before half-time. Colin Canning got a second yellow card. David Young, another man from 2010, he scored a great goal for Toom, but they only needed to lose by 5 points. I think it was 5 points or less, and they were through, and ended up losing by 13. The red card was a big part of that. And I think I've gone through the rest of the results. Just to quickly go over Galway, Castlegar beat Turlough Turlough beat Castlegar 219 to 121. Gerard Farragher, another hero of yesteryear, 2005 All-Star. At that stage, I think it was the highest score ever put up by one man in a season. Colin Ryan eclipsed him since in 2013. But he had a last gasp free that kind of just dragged wide. So Turlough, they were able to come through. Big turnaround in the second half. Barry Callan was excellent. And I see David Connors of the Tuam Herald tweeting, referee Alan Kelly adamant that the halftime score is 112 to 1-6. The entire press assembly, however, have it to 111 to 1-7. The ref's opinion, the only one that matters, and the scoreboard has been changed. So you do get those situations now and again with club. Thurlock have a lot of injuries though, but they pulled it out of the bag. Liam Mellows, they're out of the championship. They were beaten soundly by St. Thomas's 221 to 15 points. Tyke Harn had been red carded against Capitagle, so he was out of this game. So St. Thomas's look very much like they'll be winning the county title again there based on current form. Also Capitagle, they drew with Clymer Daly. Sarsfields beat Oranmore Marie well, and Crockwell, they beat Ahascra Fahina. Also, I wonder will Gert make a run from Senior B, because they beat Tina Abbey Denairi pretty well there, and they'd 118 scored by half time. So I think that's more or less it. Other than Kilkenny, there was a couple of refix games there where Bennett's Bridge beat Roar Inishtig and Mulnavat beat Erin's Own, which means the league final would be Clara against Bennett's Bridge. Shield final is Mulnavat against the Village, and then round 1 of the championship will be O'Loughlin's against the Roar, Lisdowney, Dixborough, Shamrocks, Greg Ballycallan, and Tullerone against Erin's Own. So we're a bit about, when is the Watford hurling final? Is that next weekend or the weekend?
Yeah, after? Next Sunday, yeah. Full steam ahead, Shane. We have, I think it's senior, intermediate, junior next weekend, relegation playoffs. It's helter-skelter here. There was 4 minor finals, Junior B, Junior C, you name it, over the weekend. But there's one game I have to mention, Shane.
Go ahead.
The intermediate relegation playoff in the West. It finished Shamrocks 420, Ardmore 420. This is to stay up in the intermediate. Yeah, incredible stuff. Absolute incredible stuff. I think it was 416 to 414 at the second water break or something like that. It was mad scoring, and it was glorious sunshine. But I have to mention Seamus Prendergast. I think what a warrior, what a club stalwart. I mean, he just never leaves Ardmore down. They were 420 to 419 down in the 10th minute of injury time. The Ardmore goalkeeper just pulled off a worldly of a save at the other end. Long ball up to Seamus, grabs it in the paw, taken down, free in. Descent from Shamrocks, brought in a little bit closer. Seamus sends it over the bar. Ardmore live to fight another day. They're back again next Saturday in Farrowfield to play Shamrocks. So Ardmore are still up intermediate, but Seamus at 41 years of age, still going strong. Himself and Declan have, given everything for the club. One local observer here still rates Seamus as the best club player he's seen in the last 20 years. Like, he just gives it all for Ardmore. Remarkable stuff. And there's a few examples of that. You have Dan the man came on for Lismore there last week at 44. There's a player for Ballysaggart who's starting, Eugene Janey O'Brien, 44 as well. Love these stories. And in Junior B as well, they're nice. Stephen Malumphey was playing for Ballyduff Upper against Shane Welch's 4 Mile Water. Shane Welch, who played for Watford as well. So it's great to see these hurlers of yesteryear, as you say, Shane, still knocking around and doing the business for the parish. Yeah,
I see Joe Fortune is named as the Westmeath manager, and like he won a county title with Ballyboden a couple of years ago. In between, like with Coola winning 5 of the last 6, that's good going there. And also he was over the Dublin under-21s. But I want to ask you about Stephen Malumphey taking over with Kerry. Was that a move you saw coming? Like, obviously he'd been involved with the Watford team in recent times.
I didn't, to be honest. But I know he's been building up his experience with Wexford under Davy Fitzgerald, and also with Waterford with Liam Cahill. I'm sure Liam Cahill might have liked him to be back around as well. There is a vacancy in terms of a Waterford selector with Tom Creaney stepping away. But Stephen obviously wants to climb the ladder. He was over in England for a spell. Due to the Irish Defence Forces, he's back now. So he'll be heading down to Kerry, and there's a little bit of a Waterford contingent going with him. You have Pat Bennett as well, former Waterford hurler, was in David Fitzgerald's backroom team, and he's heading down with them too. And also Shane Briggs would be well known as a great Waterford footballer over the past 20 years. And he's been involved in Waterford underage hurling setups, 20s, 21s over the years. So there's a good Waterford contingent going down, and it'll be a fair bit of interest to see how Malumphey goes down there. But really highly thought of with the work he's done with Wexford and with Watford the past couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a reminder to keep an eye out for Tomas's book, Game My Life, talking about all the great stories of Watford over the years. I'm sure that was great fun and a pursuit of passion to get that job done. So best of luck with that, Tomas, and appreciate you joining me today. Also a reminder, brought to you by OrgaRetro.com. If you want to get this great Tipperary jersey, and why wouldn't you? Or if you want to lower yourself to that Watford jersey over there,
it's a classic, Shane. It's a classic.
It is a classic, to be fair. It is actually, it genuinely is. But go to orgaretro.com and get the promo code, use the promo code ORGAME for 15% off. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. It's absolutely free to do it. Hit the button in the bottom right-hand corner there. It helps the channel grow. So look, my thanks very much to Tomas. We'll see you all again soon. Thanks very much, Tomas.
Cheers, thanks, Shane.